Thank you.
Mr. Mike McCaul, Chairman of the Homeland Security Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Secretary, let me just say sincerely, I want to thank you for your service in these very challenging times that we find ourselves in. And I also want to, I appreciate your comments about the greatest generation. My father was a B-17 bombardier in the European theater. Truly was a great and is a great generation. They were all in, and they were all in to win, and they won. And they defeated fascism. I see a new threat, and it is Islamist extremism. And it seems to me the best homeland security policy we can have is to eliminate the threat where it exists rather than it coming into the United States. Before this committee, we will be deliberating an authorization for the use of military force. We had a meeting with White House officials, chairman and myself and others, and we're presented with the president's policy on this. I must say the reception was not. I have concerns of a timetable, telling ISIS how long we're in the fight, concerns about tying the hands of our generals, concerns about usually an authorization is asked for by the Congress to expand the president's authority and the military's powers rather than restrict them. I cannot support this authorization as presented by the administration. The authorization I would like to see, I'd like to get your opinion on, would be an authorization to degrade and destroy ISIS wherever they exist. Can you tell me whether you would support an authorization like that?
Well, that's in the authorization. There's no geographic limit purposefully in order to be able to destroy them wherever they exist. And the President's thinking, which I agree with respect to the continuation, is, look, there's a huge divide in Congress. We all know that. There was an unhappy experience with a prolonged war in Iraq that became a war of choice and which didn't, in most people's judgment, have to be fought. And people are tired. They don't want to go back and do another 14-year, military excursion. And there's a divide as to sort of how do you balance this. So what the President did, I came up and testified on the AUMF in December. We listened to both sides of the aisle, where some people were resisting the idea of something that's open-ended, where you're going to be working 14, 15 years from now on the same authorization. And the President, I think, thoughtfully and appropriately said, you know what? Congress ought to be able to unite. The American people ought to be able to speak with one voice to say, we are going to go out.
If I could just, it sounds like a political document.
We're going to try and degrade.
Well, and I agree. It says wherever it exists, but it puts
all
a lot of limitations on our military. And I think all the options should not be taken off the table. I think that's a dangerous precedent. This would restrict the President's authority compared to the 2001 AUMF that he has current authority under. I'd like to ask you, and I appreciate your letter of response on the Syrian refugee.
But Congressman, can I just say to you very quickly? The reason for giving the next, nobody knows who the next president is. The next president ought to have the right to be able to say, I need more, I want more, or let's continue it the way it is. Nothing is going to stop you from doing that. The policy clearly is committed to degrade and destroy ISIS.
And we agree on the policy. I just don't think you can achieve that goal if you put restrictions on the. You were in the Vietnam conflict. We had a micromanaged war that I think didn't allow our troops to win that war. And I don't want to make the same mistake with ISIS. And I think our precipitous withdrawal without a status of forces agreement, quite frankly, created ISIS to some extent. Syrian refugee issue. I had a hearing on this. I had the FBI testify. We have 500 refugees in this country. But the plan of the State Department, as I understand it, is to bring thousands more in to the country as we're trying to block foreign fighters from coming into the United States from Western Europe and Americans who have traveled. The idea of bringing in thousands of Syrian refugees, I think, poses a potential risk to Americans. That was borne out not only by Homeland Security officials at my hearing, but the FBI made it very clear that they don't have the intelligence and the proper databases to properly vet these Syrian refugees who would be coming into the United States under your program, this federally sanctioned to bring in refugees. I think this raises serious risks and concerns, and I think that rightly so when the FBI is telling me that and agreeing with that as well. Can you tell me what your plan is?
Well, the plan is to engage in what we would call super vetting. I mean, an extraordinary level of vetting. And if the FBI is not satisfied, I'm quite confident that people aren't going to be allowed in. So I don't see this as a conflict. I mean, we have amazing ways of being able to dig down and dig deep. We're doing it now, by the way, with respect to the Syrian opposition that is being vetted in order to join up to the training and equip program. I think we're about, well, I'm not going to put the numbers out here, but there's a disparity between the numbers who have signed up and the number who have absolutely been proved and who have entered the program. And I think the same thing will happen here.
Well, and I'll close with it. I was in Jordan. I saw the refugees, and I agree.
Most
are women, they're mothers and children.
We've been doing this for years now.
Well, we made some mistakes with Iraq. The Iraqis have been prosecuted for being terrorists, but the Minister of Interior and Security in Jordan told me, personally, I don't know who these people are. I don't know who they are because I don't have intelligence to vet them. So
I think the vetting will reach the security minister of Jordan and others, and when they weigh in accordingly, I don't think you're going to see those people coming in.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.